Wondering how to use the Momcozy M5 Smart wearable breast pump? Stick around. In this Momcozy M5 Smart tutorial, I'm going to walk you through the different parts, assembly, tips, app integration, and how to use the Momcozy M5 Smart to get the best out of your pumping experience. So let's get started and take a look at the different components that make up this pump. Now, what I love is there are only 5 parts to this pump. This makes cleaning nice and easy as well as assembly. So firstly, we have your collection cup. This is where all your milk pools during your pumping session. You have your diaphragm. Now this stops milk getting back into your pump motor. You have your flange. This sits up against your breast. It's where your nipple sits during your pumping session. You have your duckbill valve. Though this is small, it is mighty. It is there to push your breast milk into your collection cup from the flange. And then you have your pump motor. On here, you have a control panel. This is what creates, drives, controls your suction. So how does this all go back together? First, we're going to take our collection cup. Now we want to take our diaphragm. It sits in this circular tube at the base of your collection cup. Now it simply sits on top, and then you want to push nice and firmly around to ensure that it is nice and secure. Now, I'll start this right at the start. Make sure all your pump parts are nice and firmly in place. Having a loose seal, whether it's not quite on correctly or whether it's damaged, this will impact your suction, impacting your overall output, as well as potentially leading to leaks. So really vital that we have all our parts nice and securely in place. Once that's nice and firmly there, we're going to take the duckbill valve and put it at the base little tubing of our flange. Now that simply pushes on. Again, nice and firm. I like to make sure it sits flat in line with my flange. Next, we're going to take our flange and attach it to the cup. Now, the thing that I like about this, see this little heart here? It tells you straight away you need to line up this heart and heart. So we can simply look through. Once they're in line, to push nice and firm on our flange. Tunnel. Now we are going to want to attach our nice soft silicone flange to the hard silicone of the collection cup. Now you'll see there's a lip that we can just simply lift up and over and then push that nice and firmly around. Again, making sure that we have a really nice secure seal, no air leaks, no potential option for suction loss or that golden liquid to seep out. Now you will also notice here, I should point it out, there's a little cut here. This is for the top, which is your pouring spout. One thing to notice with the pouring spout, there is no cap. You cannot go 360 degrees with your pump. If you lean forward too far, you'll potentially get milk leaks because this is an opening at the top. So make sure you're pumping upright. Then we simply take our pump motor and it pushes into place at the top. And that is your completed Momcozy M5 pump. Now, before you get started with your pumping, there are a couple of, housekeeping rules that we follow. One, make sure you always have clean hands. Wash them, clean them, dry them before you assemble your pump. Next, we're going to also want to make sure that our pump is clean and sterilize it at least once a day. Make sure your pump parts are clean and dry before we start pumping. Then we also want to make sure that we have the correct flange size. Now, this comes in a standard 24mm flange. this might be ideal for you, but for a lot of mums, we're not all the standard. So you need to measure your nipple size to get your correct flange size. Now, Momcozy do include a nipple ruler, makes it nice and easy to use this. You're going to want to stimulate your nipple, and then you simply hold this up against your breast until you find a tunnel that you can slide your nipple all the way through to the base. Now, you don't want to be going too far where you can see lots of your areola. It simply slides down to the base. So for me, if my finger was a nipple, I would be size 24 millimeters on my flange. So have a go, make sure you are regularly measuring your nipple size throughout your postpartum journey. The further you go into it, the smaller your nipple size tends to become. So keep that in mind and measure regularly. It's generally one of those things that is a big cause of discomfort or low output. So measure those nipples. And then you have, if you put it on here, I was looking for it. If you need to reduce your flange tunnel down from the 24 millimeters, you can do that with a flange insert. Now, I did notice Momcozy don't actually have their sizes on it. They only come on the pack. So do keep that in mind if you're opening several packs of flange inserts. You may just have to have a look at the sizing of the tunnel and take a guess. Otherwise, one at a time is probably preferred. Now, you simply take your flange insert and place that into your flange tunnel, making sure that it lies super flat within that flange. Now, what this does is it reduces that 24 millimeter down to the size of your flange insert. So in this case, it's a 19 millimeter. Right, that aside, our pump is clean. We have our correct flange size. We are ready to pump. You are going to want to line your nipple up centrally within the flange tunnel. Imagine my hand's the breast, finger is the nipple. Then we're going to want to push nice and firm and then secure our pump in place with a nice firm pumping bra. Now, we don't want this going loose in our bra and moving all the way around because we're relying on this suction between our breast and the flange. That's why this is such a great flange, because you've got the double fit, but you've also got the flexibility to mold against your body. So we're wanting to make sure that we have a nice firm fit. Once we have that, we are ready to go. Now on your pump, I have this pause, let me turn this off. To turn your pump on and off, you can control this two ways. First, we're going to talk about on pump. You simply hold the power button in for 2 seconds. Your pump will automatically start. It starts in the stimulation mode. Now, this is the heart little option you can see here. This is the shortest suctions for initiating your letdown. Then after 2 minutes, it will switch over to the expression mode. Now that's represented by this droplet. These are the longer drawn out suctions for drawing out your breast milk. And then you have a mixed mode, which is a combination of these two. It's 7 shorter suctions followed by 1 longer suction. Okay, so a couple of important things to note. Your pump will start automatically. If you don't want it to, you can tap the power button and that will pause your pump. It will also start in the last suction level that you had. Now there are 9 different suction levels. So if your last session finished in 9, at 9, it will start again in 9. I highly recommend, if you are new to pumping, new to this pump, you start low, start a level 2, maybe a 3. What these suction levels do is just determine how strong those pulls are going to feel. Now, we don't want to start at the highest, which is the 9. We don't want to be ripping our nipple off every time when we are just starting, because pumping really does rely on your comfort level, not just the suction strength to determine your output. So start low and then work your way up until you find a level that feels comfortable but also gives you a great output. Again, which mode to start in? We start in the stimulation to get that initial letdown and milk flow, and then we can swap to the expression, or if you prefer, try the mixed mode to see what works well for you. During your pumping, if you notice your milk slowing or your output's not where you're expecting it to be, try go back to the stimulation mode and give yourself another letdown. You can have multiple letdowns during your pumping session. Some mums find a minute or 2 on stimulation followed by 5 minutes of expression, and then switch back to the stimulation, and that gives them the best result. They might have 2 or 3 different letdowns during their pumping session. So really have a play around, find a setting that works best for you and your body. Now, when I turn this back on, a couple of other things to note. So the L is level. You see down here you have a little battery icon. This is just the level to indicate your battery life. When it gets down to the last bar, it will also flash. This is just indicating your battery is low, and it starts flashing when you have 30 minutes to go. Now, highly recommend that you don't leave it down to the last minute. The further you get away from your recharge, so draining that battery, it does potentially reduce how much suction strength you'll have. So making sure your battery is charged prior to use is very beneficial. And then when you are obviously in your pumping mode, it will switch over to these double digits with the min. That's just how many minutes you have been pumping for. Now, one of the reasons, no doubt, you bought the Momcozy M5 is because it also has app integration, and we can use this to discreetly operate our pump. So when you first jump on, you can hit this plus up the top in the app. You will need to log in, create all your logins, and then you can add a device. You press the add, select which one you're trying to add, and then run through that process. Once your pump is connected, you can simply click on your pump. Within the app, you can adjust your stimulation mode and switch. You can go to your expression. You can go to the mix, and you'll notice on my pump, it's actually changing these controls too. You can go up or down with the levels. You can also pause or press play for your pump. So if I press play, my pump now automatically starts, or I can press pause and my pump will pause. You can also power your pump on and off through the app. So this is really great, hands-free, makes it nice and discreet if you're pumping at work. Once you've finished your pumping session, it will ask you, would you like to turn the device off? If we're finished, yes, you can go then and track your milk output. So the app is really great for controlling your pump as well as tracking your output. All right. So once we have done our pumping session, we are going to then want to take our breast milk from in here and put it into our storage container. Now, we unsecure our bra. Please do not just rip this. This will rip your nipple with it. You are going to want to lean forward slightly, break the seal with your finger, and then remove your pump. Now, one of the things with the Momcozy M5, you can see that there is a flatter base here with your pump, so it will lay down, but it's generally when it's full and when the pump motor is removed. If you have the pump motor on, it will tip forward. So keep that in mind. I'd hate for it to tip and you lose all your breast milk. So take the pump motor off. You can place it down while you're removing your other pump if needed. Then we're going to want to pour this in to our storage container. You cannot keep it stored in your collection cup. Pour it into a breast milk bag or bottle ready for proper storage. Okay, now once we've done our pumping, we can clean our pump and then sterilize if needed to. So we pull all the pump parts apart, anything that has come in contact with breast milk. So we do not need to wash our pump motor. If you get a splash of breast milk, wipe it with a dry cloth, damp if you need, but you do not want to submerge this in water or you will destroy your pump. Right, cleaning. Now, cleaning has come a long way, which is amazing. If you have seen some of my other videos, hopefully this doesn't contradict. But this is where we're at with the Momcozy M5 Smart. You can clean your parts in warm soapy water. They are top dishwasher safe. You can use pump wipes to clean them in between. You can also use the Momcozy Clean Power to clean your pump parts. We want to clean them after every use. If you're doing the warm soapy water method, wash them in warm soapy water, give them a rinse, pop them on a nice clean towel to dry. Once a day, we are going to want to sterilize our pump parts. Now, you can do this by boiling them in, obviously, water for 5 to 10 minutes. You can use a sterilizer like the Momcozy Clean Power. However, you cannot use a steam or UV sterilizer. These parts are only rated to 110 degrees Celsius, so please check your equipment before you try sterilizing these. Anything over that 110 degrees Celsius will damage these pump parts and you will end up needing to replace them. In terms of replacement, when you're cleaning your pump, it's always a good time to check your pump parts, check if there's any damage. Are your seals all adequate? Have they all worn out and gone a bit warpy? That is time to replace, especially your flange. If you're noticing any cuts or any tears, it's not going on quite right. Every 2 months or so, depending on your usage, you're going to want to replace your diaphragm and your duckbill valve. They're very cheap and inexpensive. More often than not, they're your problem. If you're finding that you're losing suction, try replacing these. You'll know with your duckbill valve, this opens and closes through your pumping session. So eventually it will stay more open than it is closed. At this point, you need to be changing it out. So something to keep in mind. All right, recharging. You have a USB-C. It sits in here. You plug it in. You cannot use your pump while it is on charge. So keep that in mind for when you are doing your pumpings or your schedule. Make sure that you have enough time to recharge your pump. Should last that 180 minutes. But as I said, as it gets closer to that end of that 180 minutes, you may find a difference in your suction and your output. So easy solution is pop this back on charge. I think I have covered everything. If you have any questions, please ask and I'll do my very best to answer. Happy pumping.